Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week. And here we are at talkTV's world headquarters talking absolute sense, because I'm delighted to say I've got a newbie with me. David Bull is here for the first time.
Hello, very good to see you.
My co-presenter on talkTV, of course, breakfast at the weekends.
Yes, indeed.
Very much enjoying that. And Esther Krakue, who's here, busy.
I know, I basically live here now.
We basically live here. I've managed to squeeze you for half an hour into this particular show, so thank you very much indeed. Very busy girl. Let's start with you, David, because we always give the first chance of the first plank of the week to anybody who's never done it before. So off you go.
Well,
who is it?
I think my plank of the week has to be the EU. Just generally, actually.
Yes. It's not a bad shout.
The whole thing.
Well, you've got to remember, of course, I know something about the EU because obviously I was a Brexit Party MEP. Right. So I worked in that illustrious building, which actually we called the Death Star.
Did you?
Yeah, because it was something like out of Star Wars.
I had Gerald Howarth on today, and he referred to it as the evil empire.
Well, it is. It is.
Wow.
And actually, when you're there, actually, in that chamber, you really get the sense of the federal structure. You get the sense of this authoritarian regime. But essentially, the reason I want to put them in there is because they can't stop meddling, can they?
They really hate it.
This is over the Northern Ireland Protocol, and the fact, and I feel very strongly about this, we've annexed Northern Ireland, which is unacceptable.
Yes.
1.85 million people live there, and you know, if I lived in Northern Ireland, I'd be pretty angry right now.
Definitely.
And so obviously,
and it's all for nothing, isn't it? Really, I mean, their objections to leaving Northern Ireland as part of the UK are ridiculous.
Well, and also, you know, I warned about this. You cannot stick a border in the Irish Sea. It does not work. And basically, what you've done is annex Northern Ireland, and obviously they're cross. Now, finally, the government has realised that actually this is something that needs to be addressed, and so they've come up with what I think is actually quite a clever idea with the green lane, the red lane, then obviously the dual regulatory regime and so on. And of course, the EU don't like it. No. So obviously they're going to...
They don't like solutions, do they? I mean, this is what they do. I mean, the EU loves having something that just goes on and on forever. You know, you never ever resolve it.
No.
We're expecting a legal challenge in the next few days.
Three legal challenges.
I know, that's what they've said. And Liz Truss says, no, it's all fine. I was like, well, you know, let's see what they come up with. But again, this is what they always do. What is your solution, right? Because we can't go on like this indefinitely.
Well, they don't want a solution. That's the point. They'd rather just keep fighting and sort of feeding back channels to Lord Adonis, who's gone completely insane.
Do you think it's a distraction, though? Because
well, no, I don't think it is. I think the trouble is, but what I'd also like to put an honorary mention in for the weasels of Her Majesty's press, who was shouting at Boris the other day, "Are you going to break international law, Prime Minister?" It's like, well, no, because we haven't made the law. He's not breaking anything. It's a treaty that we agreed to, which has now not been honoured by the EU, right?
Indeed, and also the key to this is about absolute necessity. The thing is that actually we're fragmenting the United Kingdom, and actually that is of paramount importance to me, that the United Kingdom remains united. And the problem is, look, you've got Nicola Sturgeon now saying, oh, we'll have another referendum.
I know, she can't read the room. This is absolutely...
She's not going to win it either.
I don't know if you saw the poll in October last year that kind of looked at the interest in another sort of Scottish referendum. And it was exactly the same as when they voted to not leave the United Kingdom. And I just thought,
it's like
this
55,
was...
45 or something.
Yeah, less than a year ago. Can you not read the room?
But also the thing is, it's because Scotland is so badly managed, it is in so much debt, and actually if they remove the funding from the rest of the United Kingdom, they would be sunk.
They'd fall into rack and ruin. It's a great start.
Thank you.
Who's your first, Esther?
My first is... It's like he's the honorary plank, Prince Andrew.
Of course he is.
Because this man has no sense of self-awareness, no shame, no sense of decency. I mean, where do I begin? Anyway, but he's trying to shoehorn his way back into public life by attending the Order of the Gospel. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Go for it.
I know,
you get the memo.
Exactly. But you know what amazes me is it's twofold. One, he genuinely thinks he has a case to enter the public life, even though there's clearly no appetite for it. But also, he thinks the public is missing something by him not being in the public life. And I just think you know, the only reason why you haven't got into hotter water over all these allegations and your friendship with Jeffrey Epstein is because you come from a privileged, wealthy family. Actually, the most privileged and wealthy family you could possibly ever be born to. Just take that and leave, right? Don't keep harping. You know what I mean? What exactly do you want? You're not exactly being retired on a council estate. You're very wealthy. You're very protected. Just leave it be.
But I love the fact that allegedly William said it's either him or me, and I think that, and it shows that transition, doesn't it, of the monarchy, and it was very clearly staged, obviously with Charles and William, and then with George George as well. And Andrew's like, hello, I'm still
But
here.
you know, if there's any way to wreck the royal family and completely destroy it and give the Republicans a good case, this is it.
Exactly.
You can't get better than Prince Andrew. I'm sorry.
But it's clear that he spent his entire life convincing his mother, the Queen, to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And she's always just caved in.
Exactly.
And, you know, we've all got mothers who would do anything for you. But obviously in this case it's a bit more important than that. Because, I mean, she can't just go, oh, OK, then, back you come.
I know.
The thing I can't believe is, I wasn't sure the story could be true. Because I thought, when I read on Friday, you know, Prince Andrew's going to have a surprise for everybody on Monday, I was like, oh, Christ. Could be almost anything, that.
Oh, my gosh.
But then his name's on the order of service.
I know.
And you go, what was he? So somebody obviously thought it was OK.
Yeah. But, you know, the man has, you know, Kevin was saying this, he has no judgment, right?
No.
Because even if, and you can't ignore this, but let's try for a moment. Even if we just ignore all the allegations, you went on tape, you did an interview saying you were friends with a known convicted paedophile, and you chose to stay friends and be seen in public with this known convicted paedophile because of your sense of honor. That shows that you have no place in public life because you have no sense of judgment whatsoever.
And he also said a series of things which are idiotic, like the fact that he
I can't believe they let that interview go.
And then even worse than that, he left the interview thinking he'd done quite well.
I know.
Zero inside.
You know, hello.
And all the PR people would have gone, oh, no,
I know.
no.
It was like, oh, I think that went there quite well. And everyone was just like, what? And they let it air.
Yeah. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Right, my first one is just today, British comic Sir Lenny Henry, who's come out and said, he's done an interview and he said he singled out Glastonbury in particular, but he says he's interested, in his words, by the absence of any BAME. I don't even know if we say BAME.
I mean, I know it's been made redundant, but...
No BAME faces in the crowd. He says basically that apparently he's always surprised at how few brown and black faces there are at music festivals. Well, I mean, it depends on the music festival, doesn't it?
I mean, this take is so bad, it's almost comedic.
Right. Yeah, no.
It's almost comedic. It's like he's trying to resurrect his comedy career with such a bad take.
Yeah.
Music taste isn't racist. You're never going to catch me dead at a country concert.
No, I was just thinking I went to the Mobos.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this is the thing. How many non-BAME faces do you see at reggaeton festivals in Brixton?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. This is the thing. He's picking and choosing what he thinks is a form of racism.
Well, also, it leads to this kind of ludicrous kind of culture in which everybody has to have, you know, some kind of representation, so that no matter where you are in the world, you have to have a mix of people.
What about having the best people?
You know,
what about that?
Yeah. Oh,
if you go to somewhere like Tokyo, right? Most of the people there, guess what, are Japanese.
I know.
In China,
I know.
most people are Chinese.
Right.
You know?
Incredible.
Wow, this is
happens that we are a very diverse nation.
We are.
So a lot of British people actually are all sorts of different colours.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. So why make a thing of it?
Well, I actually think it's about him staying relevant, isn't it? That's what, and it smacked of desperation to me. It's like, look at me, I have something to say. Actually, I think we've moved on. Actually, we're now a multicultural society.
People don't care.
People don't.
I mean, my kids, for example, do not give a
But you also don't see colour
about any of it.
Do they?
No. Well, no. I don't. I mean,
but this is the obsession of the idol, right? Because you have to be so idle to look at something like Glastonbury and be like, oh, there's a bit of racism there for you. I mean, are you serious? That is the most low IQ thing you could possibly choose. Yeah. You're never going to see me at a country music festival or, I don't know, rock music or anything like that. I just don't listen to it, right? None of the people I know listen to it. And they're all shades and different colours, and I just think he's just idle. It's just idle.
Yeah, I think he's just making a point that doesn't need to be made for the sake of getting his name in the paper.
So do I.
But what exactly is his remedy? How would you remedy this?
Well, he's saying that it's all about progress and that we've now made more progress than we did. But he started off in a black and white minstrel show, which was a show where people basically put blackface on. And he took part in that, even though he was actually black.
I honestly didn't know that.
Which is a kind of odd thing to know.
Very odd.
He says now it's great because we've got black people on Mastermind. He thinks that's progress. I mean, how about not talking about it is progress?
I feel like people like this...
And positive discrimination is wrong, I think. Anyway.
Well, it's just discrimination,
Well, it's discrimination. That's absolutely the point.
But, you know, the thing is, I feel like people like this really don't understand the UK and they really live... When you live in London or maybe Manchester or the bigger cities, you just think everything should look like London or Manchester. This country is still 90% white.
Yes.
Right? I wouldn't want... We actually have overrepresentation of minority groups now because there's this obsession with making all of our media look like the M25 London bubble.
Right.
And I don't understand... If I didn't live in the UK, right? If I didn't know anything about the UK and I was watching British television, I would think I was in Brazil.
Yeah.
Right? Just because everything... And I'm not complaining about it, but it's clear there's an agenda there. And I just think, where does this stem from? Are you so uncomfortable with the reality of the UK, which is a majority white, Northern European country, that you feel the need to shoehorn diversity into everything? Then I'm going to live in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's absolutely right. David, who's your second one?
Oh, I have to put the House of Lords into this. Just generally, the whole of the House of Lords. You know, it's a terrible revising chamber. We have 650 MPs and over 800 peers, stuffed full of cronies from various prime ministers. I was just looking at the numbers. Blair put 374 people into the House of Lords. Cameron put 240.
Did no one think of capping it? At any point?
But also the point about the House of Lords is you've got the Lords Spiritual and the Lords Temporal, and so you've then got the Church of England represented.
Well, we'll be talking about them, won't we, later on?
In our revising chamber. And then you say, well, and obviously we're you know, they're involved with Rwanda, and I suddenly thought, why on earth are you actually pontificating on this? This should be about the laws that are passed by the Commons, which, by the way, is what people vote for. And then the revising chamber actually has to do something that actually revises, makes the laws better, but don't keep throwing it back.
No, because it's now just become a block, hasn't it?
It's just
needs massive reform.
And it can't be delayed. It can't block everything inevitably, but it can delay things to an extent. And also, there's so many Lib Dems in there because they're far more overrepresented than they are in the rest of the country.
I don't even know where they are. They're still a political
Well, no, I mean, I think surely to God, they should say, as Esther said, just cap it at least for a while.
Of course.
Until a few of them die off.
Absolutely.
That's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
Well, yeah, but I think continue to fill it up.
In '97, Labour tried to overturn, you know, certainly change the system. And talking to people like Claire Fox, as you know, Baroness Fox, I said to her, "Is it as bad as I thought it was?" And she said, "Yes."
Yeah,
it
absolutely
really
right.
is.
But you know,
they managed to get rid of hereditary peers, apart from 99 of them. You go, well, do you get rid of them or not?
That's an eighth of the law.
That's a very bad job, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I've always said, you know, I understand the case for just keeping the Lords, but reforming it, obviously.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I say is I don't understand. Our MPs are all sorts, right? The House of Commons is full of people from all walks of life. And I often say, if you haven't actually done anything with your life, you shouldn't be an MP, right? You shouldn't, you know, have a career in politics and that's just your life. Because you don't understand the people you're representing because you haven't done anything. You don't own a business, you don't raise it, you don't do anything, right?
No.
You live, all your wealth has been gained from public life.
But we know that they do PPE, they become a SPAD,
they
become a member of Parliament. It's all wrong.
And I think that's wrong. So this is why I said I understand the case for the Lords, because at least you have people in businesses, like, you know, people with expertise in something. But the way it's being done now is just not acceptable. I don't think, I mean, you have MPs that were former cleaners, right? And I just think a cleaner advising us on economic policy, maybe not, right? So maybe the Lords is a good sort of barrier to say, actually, you've gone way off. You don't understand the economy. You don't understand anything, you know, to do with what you're talking about, which I understand. But over 800 members of the House of Lords.
I mean, it's extraordinary.
It's a school.
And apparently it's the second largest chamber after the Chinese National People's Congress. So, but also
a country with 1 billion
people in the Indian Congress, which is a massive country.
I know.
That has over 1 billion people. We have, what, 66 million?
Yeah, slightly more, I think. But yes, around that number. I mean, the point is, do we need all these people? And they're on payroll, remember?
Exactly.
And they get paid
cost a lot.
£300 a day.
Exactly.
Sign in, thanks very much, I'll have lunch.
And plus all of the staff that then have to support them doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm off there for lunch next week, though, so I don't want to say too much. Well, I'm going to see Claire.
I mean, your lunch will be subsidised.
Yeah,
so
well,
that's
I mean,
nice.
you know, I'm hoping I'll do my bit for democracy by burning a place down or something. Who's your second?
Very subtle.
After a
Very
couple of
subtle.
Armagnacs.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
That's a
awesome.
nice wine.
The Church of England.
Yes.
Right. We just got onto that because of, you know, for some reason, they think they have the authority to speak so soundly on the Rwanda
The moral
policy.
authority.
Exactly, the moral authority.
Yeah.
The same people that wouldn't ordain Calvin Robinson, because Robinson, sorry.
Yeah, because he doesn't agree that the church is fundamentally
racist.
institutionally
Well,
racist.
yeah, exactly. Or he doesn't see racism at every corner. I just think, who asked you, right? No, seriously, who asked you, first of all? And secondly, what is the alternative? These people wind me up so much, not just because they're annoying.
Yeah.
They never offer an alternative solution, right? The church is very wealthy. I've not seen you opening your doors to letting any of these refugees in. All these people that are speaking have doors in their houses because they don't want to keep out unwelcome
Church of England is
people.
one of the biggest property owners in the country.
Exactly, but you somehow think that the UK should have an open door policy.
Yeah.
You have offered no alternative solutions. You haven't even said let's send them to Tonga instead of Rwanda.
Right.
They couldn't point to Rwanda on a map before this, right?
course
They
not.
just hear something that's not Canada or Switzerland or Australia and they just think, oh, it's harassment. These are people that have left France, right, the war-torn country of France. They've destroyed all their documentation, so we don't know where they're from. They've put themselves in this desperate situation. They've paid people smugglers. They don't get a say as to what happens to them, and they're very lucky they're getting on a flight and going to Rwanda and not being sent to the
I think it's
DRC.
actually worse than that. And I've been saying this all week. That I think this is now a business. You know, this is
it
not
is a
just
business.
about poor people who are trying to get somewhere to better themselves. These are people who are being recruited in refugee camps all across Europe and all across the world, being told,
and
we'll get you into Britain, and when you get there, you'll owe us $7 grand, and this is what you're going to be doing for it. And it's all about slavery.
And they're all young men.
Slavery.
And I'm sorry. They've said that if you are Ukrainian, why do Ukrainians get to come to the UK, but these people don't? Well, they've gone through a legal process, right? They've been legally registered as refugees.
Also, somebody's invaded their country.
Exactly. You do not get to shoehorn your way into the UK and expect the royal treatment.
But
you don't have that right.
But I think your point is really valid, which is that people of this country voted to do something about illegal immigration. Now, you may not like the Rwanda plan, but at least it's a plan. And the government has come up with that.
And offer an alternative.
And that's the point. And so obviously, and then suddenly you've got the Church of England sticking its nose in. But actually, and I have been out on campaigning, I've been on the streets, and when you talk to people, they like the idea the government is doing something. It costs £10 billion a year at the moment. And we are not stemming the tide of illegal immigration. Now, whether this works or not remains to be seen.
But you know the thing
I think it will work if they can get people out there.
I can guarantee this. Every other European country, Southern European country, will follow suit.
Well, also the other thing that's interesting is that the United Nations are currently saying, "Oh, it's a bad idea. Mustn't do it. Mustn't do it." They've
sent people to Rwanda.
They've actually taken people to Rwanda from Syria as part of the UNHCR.
And Libya
campaign.
as well, I believe.
And so they thought it was a fine country, you know, a couple of years ago. Now they don't think it is. But are you just going for the Church of England, or are you doing all?
Well,
I
find this particular institution. I think I genuinely believe there's a plot within themselves to destroy it within my lifetime, because I don't understand how they think this is a tenable position to take, and I don't understand how they think their actions is going to secure any sort of longevity of the Church of England. But I think my bigger issue is there is no alternative being proposed here. You're just saying that Britain is an immoral society for doing this, but what do we do with these people? And they're not even thinking, one, of a genuine refugee and asylum seekers, mostly women and children from parts of the world that probably do deserve to be at the front of the queue. They're not talking about what happens to them when these people effectively push their way to the front of the queue. But also, they're not talking about, for every person that you see coming off these dinghies, there are tens of thousands of black Africans that didn't get enough money to pay these smugglers, that are being enslaved in North Africa and the Middle East. Where does your morality extend to them? I personally know people that have been in this situation. You know, it's an economy. I know people that have family members. It's an economy. People used to stow away on ships back in the early 2000s, and people didn't understand this, right? And then they found that the dinghies were actually an efficient way of coming across from Libya to Italy and then to France, wherever they choose. If you are an asylum seeker, why would you leave a safe country like France to come to the UK? What right do you
Unless
you're
being encouraged to do so by the
Exactly.
people smugglers. That's the point. But they're very confused in the Church of England, because old Welby's not even sure that God exists.
I know. I'm surprised he can still define a woman.
He doesn't even know.
Let's
well, I mean, he probably can't, actually. He hasn't asked him that. I'm going to go for an old favourite of Keir Starmer.
Oh, yeah, a classic.
Yeah, do you remember that guy? He's the bloke from the opposition who's got lots of integrity.
He's the really dull one.
And how do we know he's got integrity? Because he keeps saying he has.
Yeah.
He keeps, you know, you meet somebody and they keep telling you how honest they are and how brilliant they are. Generally speaking, they're not either
very
honest
modest.
or brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Now, not only has he been still investigated by the police, who still haven't worked out what's going on, he's already told us that that's not a problem. Because
but apparently he will resign.
He will resign if there's a problem, but he's absolutely sure that he hasn't done anything wrong. He's now being investigated for a breach of parliamentary privileges.
Oh, yes, I know.
He forgot to say that he got quite a lucrative book contract. He forgot to mention some football matches. But he's also sure that he hasn't done anything wrong and it's just an administrative error. But I think the worst thing of all this week is his own cabinet has actually said these words: "Would you please stop boring everybody to death?" I mean, even his own
party. That's the
party.
truth. You see, the Conservative Party should really be in serious trouble at this point.
But they can't be.
But well, A, the economy, B, the way that their MPs or some of their MPs have behaved, and Labour really should be way ahead at this point in the electoral cycle. And they are not. And the reason is because he's very boring.
He's very boring. I mean, when I found out yesterday that he had been given some kind of unsolicited gift, I said, well, it certainly wasn't the personality, was it?
Well,
he still hasn't got one of those. Anyway, your number 3.
Oh, yes. So my number 3 is I have to say Rishi Sunak. You see,
yes.
The point, well, because Rishi and his lovely suits just has no idea how actually most people live.
No.
And the point is that we are now living in this ridiculously high-tax economy, high-tax, high-regulation, low-growth economy. And Rishi Sunak thinks the way to get out of this is tax us more.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have to say, he comes from a family where they only think the best thing to do in all instances is to pay more tax.
Yes.
Just in case.
Is he
they're
a
now paying
Conservative?
tax. They're now paying tax they don't have to pay.
But you've got Boris Johnson also saying, and I quote, you know, we can't tax our way out of this problem. You cannot tax your way into growth. But that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So they really need to understand that people are struggling. And when you talk to people on the doorsteps, they literally cannot afford their electricity.
No.
So something has to be done. And it's not good enough to say that inflation, we think, well, what, 9–10%, probably higher than that, actually.
Yeah.
But you cannot wait for that to come down naturally.
Yeah, before giving people a tax relief.
Because,
oh, my gosh.
You know, people will
you know,
really be in trouble.
the GDP growth figures, after we slammed our economy into a brick wall for the sake of COVID, 0.9%.
Yeah.
Imagine effectively putting your economy into a coma and expecting it to restart again, and it's less than 1% growth. People are in for very hard times.
Yeah, it's going to get worse.
And this unconservative, you know, illiterate...
But, yeah.
Chancellor is not cutting it.
No,
I'm
but
sorry.
also there are things they could do immediately. So, for example, changing the thresholds of tax so that people don't pay tax till you earn over 20,000.
Fuel tax.
The green levies. Let's talk about the green levies.
Exactly.
What is this obsession?
I know.
We need to be able to afford to eat, heat your homes, have electricity. Those are paramount. Then we can deal with the transition to green energy.
But
in about 3,000 years, perhaps. Your number 3?
My number...
This is a good one.
Oh, my gosh.
With pictures.
Oh, yes, unfortunately. I actually have to read the E! News article on this because it is incredible. It's like the garnish. CHRISTINA Aguilera.
Yeah.
Now, she was performing at LA Pride yesterday, and she decided to wear a green Hulk bodysuit with a giant schlong dangling off it.
Oh,
well. Schlong.
It's not really dangling,
a pillar and stones. Very endowed,
it's kind
I must
sticking
say.
Straight out.
It was just...
it was green.
It was, well... You don't see that every day.
The Incredible Hulk.
But this was the article that was reporting it, right? CHRISTINA Aguilera slayed the LA Pride stage at Los Angeles State Historic Park on June 11th, performing her biggest bops and working a series. First of all, this person spelled working W-E-R-K-I-N-G instead of.
Oh God.
A series of wild outfits inspired by the colours of the rainbow. Now, I have to say this because I find this month to be the most infuriating of all months because I just want to have peace in my life. I don't want to wake up and see corporate rainbow emails or FIFA telling us to celebrate Pride, but they're having,
in Qatar.
You know, the World Cup in Qatar where it is literally illegal to be gay.
Yeah.
But this takes the cake because I think there's been a lot of backlash with sort of Pride festivals in the US about sexualizing children and all of that. This wasn't in a burlesque club. This wasn't in a private room or anything. This is at a Pride festival in LA, one of the biggest sort of centers for these things. And you're literally wearing a prosthetic penis to perform. And I just think, you know, I've had comments on Twitter saying, oh, you know, it's not fair to associate, I suppose, sexualizing children and to some extent pedophilia with the Pride movement. I'm like, yeah, it's not fair, but this doesn't help, right? Because if you have children at the concert and they're looking at a dangling penis of a woman, what exactly are you trying to say?
It's kind of normalising.
Exactly, and I don't particularly appreciate it.
I think it's worse than that, actually. The LGBT community, not that I actually think there is such a thing, but anyway, it's made up of a lot of different
it's just a political movement at this point.
Yes, and absolutely. And also, what we should be doing is integrating everyone, not making a freak show out of those festivals. And actually, I also have a problem with the corporate logos all going multicoloured for this month. I mean, I think
it's just hypocritical.
Well, I said this to somebody. I checked the Home Office Twitter page the other day just to see if they'd announced that the Rwanda flights were going ahead. And they've got a Ukrainian flag on their main banner. And then inside the Home Office, they've got a rainbow. And you go, you know...
What exactly am I supposed to do?
Are you actually doing any work? Or are you just standing up for lots of people?
Yes, they're very busy raising flags.
There's no question of crime, you know...
Nothing, we don't enforce our borders, nothing.
No, there was a lovely video from one of the police forces where they all talk about their inclusion and diversity policies.
What do you love about the job?
Oh, and you commented on it, I saw that. And you said, is there any danger of doing policing?
Yeah, no crime mentioned at all.
Any chance of that?
You know, what did you find the biggest challenge for your... Well, the shift patterns were hard because you have to work at different times. Really? What, not the sort of facing down the crazed gunman or the bloke with the machete? No, you don't do any of that. No, don't do any of that.
I know.
Unbelievable. Right, obviously we will be carrying over Harry and Meghan in the traditional manner.
Are they every week now?
This week, in what I can only describe as a complete and utter sort of description and an explanation of Harry's life, he fell off a horse.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's
while playing
polo,
story.
That very inclusive sport
very inclusive that we all do
every Saturday. Apparently his team lost 11-10. I didn't even know the scores. I did go to a polo match once because I had to cover it.
Was it interesting?
No, I was just very drunk.
No, you can't really see it.
So that's a yes, no matter what.
I mean, most of it's happening a very long way away. with people on horses with hammers and a ball that you can't see.
No, that's right.
And you just stand around drinking champagne, basically.
That's why I was drunk.
That's pretty much it.
I can completely
so
understand
my final one is the NHS, I'm afraid, again. And I know your doctor's credentials will probably back me up here, but the latest story this week is that after we saw that incredible video from an A&E department somewhere up in the northeast of England, where the nurse comes out and says, I'm sorry to tell you, there's 90 patients here, and I'm afraid it will be a minimum of 7-hour wait to see a doctor. Some of you will still be here when I finish my shift in 13 hours' time. You won't have seen anybody. Today, we're told there's more than 1,000 people waiting something like 8 hours in any A&E place that you go to see somebody, to just help them. This is the accident and emergency department of the National Health Service of this country. And it's just not, I mean, like everything else, it's not working.
No, the thing that annoys me about this the most is that we have no alternative, right? Over half of what we pay in income tax goes towards the NHS. We don't actually have an alternative to put that money that is effectively designated to this very poor service to private healthcare, because we don't have that option. We don't have the income, right? Which is why you'd think a Conservative Chancellor would want to cut taxes. But that's neither here nor there. But that's what infuriates me. We have no alternative.
But yes, and of course, the whole thing is wrapped up by the fact that the public clap, we clap for
it. Exactly,
it's
like barking seals.
You know, and the point is that we have to stop kidding ourselves. It's not world-leading, actually. And people say it's underfunded. Well, actually, it's not either.
No.
And I was an A&E doctor, and I know the pressures those doctors and nurses are under, and it is pretty intolerable. But the point is, and the reason it's gone horribly, horribly wrong is you can't see a GP because they only do 3 days a week and get 120 grand for it. So if you can't see a GP, where do you go? You go to A&E. Well, A&E isn't the place to do that. So again, we need to say we need to change and reform this system dramatically. Why on earth do you see a GP and then, you know, you're sent for blood tests, then you go back, then you get the result. How many appointments have you had? Let's set up one-stop shops and actually sort this mess out. But actually, the whole system is horribly broken.
But we've been saying this for a while.
I think we need to give people alternatives. We need to start encouraging the private healthcare system.
But people are. I mean, I speak to people all the time who are going private, and not all of them can afford it, but they're finding the money just to get it done.
And the bigger problem is that actually many of these doctors work in both systems, so we actually need to train more doctors, and that is the biggest problem.
But we all say this, and we've been saying it for a long time. Nobody seems to be grasping the nettle. But we haven't got a lot of time, guys, so we're going to rush through the end of it now. So here's what we do. Why don't you pick your favourite one of Esther's 3?
Yes.
So tell David
what
your 3 are.
So I had Prince Andrew, the Church of England, and Christina Aguilera.
I mean, for me, it has to be Christina Aguilera because it's just ridiculous and shouldn't happen.
And grotesque.
Okay.
So now I should pick yours. So you got your 3.
I've got to remember what mine were, actually.
I can remember.
So House of Lords, didn't I? I had House of Lords, EU, which always gets a big cheer. And then, obviously, Rishi Sunak.
I'm going to go with the European Union, I think, because this is the week. This is the week for them. Yeah, absolutely. And Rishi will be back in it, I'm sure, again. And mine are Sir Keir Starmer, the NHS, and Lenny Henry.
Ooh, Lenny Henry. I mean, that's just stupid.
Just not helpful,
is
it?
It's just stupid.
Yeah. So, we're down to the wire. So, Lenny Henry, the EU, and Christina Aguilera. It's quite a good mix.
Can I vote for myself?
Yeah.
No, we all vote now. Did we decide who should win? We tried to reach an agreement.
Fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Christina Aguilera. It's just because...
Yeah?
It's too trivial.
It's just grotesque,
It is grotesque, but trivial.
It's not as important as the European Union.
Yeah, the European Union is a big deal.
I would go with that and give her number 2.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. Should we make the European Union? Because they haven't been planks for a while, actually. I mean,
know, the whole lot.
You can imagine.
I was there every day.
No, but in 2019, I think they won it hands down every week.
I know.
Every single week.
I bet they won in 2016 as well, for God only knows why.
Yes. So, in that case, I think we can say that, so Christina Aguilera 2nd, Lenny Henry 3rd. But the winners, for the first time, I think maybe this year.
I know.
It's the European Union. We thought we'd forgotten about them, but they're back.
They're back.
I know.
Don't worry.
The evil empire. David Bull, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you on Saturday morning.
Indeed.
Esther will probably see you before that.
I know.
Somewhere. Here's Morgan's show, The Talk.
Somewhere.
All over we're all over the place. We're everywhere. This has been Plank of the Week. The European Union haven't been planks for a while. They're still planks. It's good to know. We'll see you next time.